All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the biggest, most ambitious goals in all of science, nuclear fusion. We're going to break down why building a star right here on Earth is so incredibly hard, and, maybe more importantly, uncover the one problem that could derail the whole thing, even if we get the physics right. Let's jump in.
I'm sure you've heard this one before, right? Fusion is always 20 years away. For decades, that's been the line. A bit of a running joke, really. It perfectly sums up this feeling that this incredible, world-changing tech is always just around the corner, but we never seem to actually get there.
So you gotta wonder, with all that skepticism, why bother? Why pour billions of dollars into something that's always 20 years away? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Because if we pull this off, it changes everything.
I mean, just take a second and really picture it. We're talking about limitless, totally clean energy for the entire planet. No more carbon emissions. Think about it. Global energy independence, which could end all sorts of conflicts over resources. We could power heavy industry, steel making, without pollution. We could even solve water shortages by making desalination cheap and easy. It's not just a new power source. It's the blueprint for a whole new kind of world.
Okay, so that's the dream, right? The grand utopian promise. But what's the reality? What does it actually take to build a miniature star and bottle it up here on Earth?
Well, it all starts with creating something called a plasma. You've probably heard of it as the fourth state of matter. Basically, you take a gas and you heat it up a lot, until the atoms get so energized they just get ripped apart. You're left with this cloud of charged particles. And that charge is the key, because it means we can grab onto it and control it with powerful magnetic fields.
And you absolutely need that control to get past the single biggest roadblock in fusion. See, at the atomic level, the nuclei of atoms are all positively charged. And just like the north poles of two magnets, they do not want to get close to each other. They repel with incredible force. So getting them to fuse is like trying to smash those two north poles together. It's a huge challenge. So how do you do it? The leading design for this is a machine called a tokamak, and it's basically a four-step process. First, you make your plasma. Then you use these insanely powerful superconducting magnets to trap it and squeeze it into a donut shape. Step 3, you heat it. And I mean, you heat it to temperatures that are just mind-boggling, hotter than the core of the sun. And when those particles are moving that fast, they can finally overcome that repulsive force, smash together, fuse, and release a tremendous amount of energy.
Now, to make this whole thing work as well as it possibly can, scientists have a preferred fuel recipe. They don't just use any old hydrogen. They use a special mix of two of its heavier cousins, or isotopes, deuterium and tritium. Why? Well, this combination is just way more likely to fuse. And when it does, it releases a ton of energy. And, best of all, the only byproduct is stable, harmless helium. It's the perfect reaction, really.
Okay, so we've got our machine, the tokamak, and we've got our perfect fuel cocktail. Sounds like we're all set, right? Well, not quite. This is where we hit our first massive, and I mean massive, roadblock.
So, the first part of our fuel mix, deuterium, is actually pretty easy to get. You can find it in seawater. It's not like it's everywhere, but we know how to extract it pretty well. So getting enough deuterium? Not a problem. Check.
But the other ingredient, tritium, that is a whole different story. It is unbelievably rare. I mean, get this, the estimated total supply of tritium on the entire planet is about 20 kilograms. That's it, the whole world.
So, 20 kilograms. That might sound like a lot, but how far does it actually go? Well, a single commercial fusion power plant is expected to use about 300 grams of tritium every single day.
You do the math on that, and our entire global supply would fuel just one reactor for a little over 2 months. Then it's gone. Poof. So yeah, a global fusion economy is a complete non-starter if we can't solve this fuel problem.
So you have what looks like an impossible problem, a critical fuel shortage before you've even built the first plant. How on earth do you solve that? Well, the plan is something straight out of alchemy, seriously.
The idea is to get the reactor to make its own fuel. It's brilliant, really. They plan to line the inside of the reactor with something called a breeding blanket that's full of lithium. When the fusion reaction happens, it shoots out these high-energy neutrons. Those neutrons slam into the lithium, splitting the atoms and creating, you guessed it, fresh tritium. So in theory, the reactor can just keep breeding its own fuel on site. Problem solved, right?
Well, almost.
To make this whole breeding thing super efficient, you need even more neutrons flying around. So the blanket needs another special ingredient, a neutron multiplier. It's a material where if one neutron goes in, two come out. It doubles your output. And the best candidate we have for this critical job is an element called beryllium.
And wouldn't you know it, this clever solution creates a brand new supply crisis. See, to build just one of these commercial reactors, you need up to 560 tons of beryllium. The problem? Last year, the entire planet only produced about 260 tons, so we'd need to more than double the entire world's production just for a single power plant. It's another huge bottleneck.
And the issues with beryllium don't just stop there. For one, it's crazy expensive because it's so rare. But even worse, it can have tiny, trace amounts of natural uranium in it. Now, inside a fusion reactor, that uranium gets blasted with neutrons constantly. And guess what happens? It can turn into radioactive, fissile material. So now you've got long-term nuclear waste, which makes taking the plant apart at the end of its life a really difficult and really expensive problem.
Okay, let's recap for a second. We have a fuel we can't find, so we have to make it ourselves, inside the reactor. And to do that, we need another material that's also incredibly rare, super expensive, and creates its own radioactive waste problem. All this insane complexity, all this cost, it's all starting to sound very, very familiar.
I mean, just think about traditional nuclear power, fission. It already gives us huge amounts of clean, carbon-free energy, but we're shutting down those plants all over the world. Why? Because they're just too expensive to run. And here's the really scary part. It looks like tokamak fusion reactors are heading straight down that exact same economic dead end.
When you put them side by side, the similarities are just chilling. Both fission and fusion have insanely high costs to build them in the first place, thanks to all the complexity and rare materials. And then they both have insanely high costs to take them apart at the end of their lives because of radioactive components. It feels like we're solving these beautiful, complex physics problems, only to end up with a machine that no one can afford to actually build or run.
And that leaves us with the big billion-dollar question, doesn't it? We are proving, step by step, that the physics of fusion is solvable. We can build a star on Earth. But what's the point of limitless energy if the machine that creates it is just too expensive to build? Maybe the greatest challenge for fusion isn't the plasma physics or the magnets after all. Maybe it's the economics. And in the end, that might be the only problem that really matters.